Hello and welcome to your Astro+Tarot Forecast for the week of April 14th through the 20th. If you're new here, my name is Michelle Shea Walker. I'm an astrologer, an intuitive coach, an energy teacher, and I do these readings on a weekly basis. They mainly appear over on my Substack, so if you're not a subscriber there, you might check that out. And we end each of our weekly recap readings with a drawing for an individual. So if you ever want to participate in that drawing, you can either become a paid subscriber on Substack for only $5 a month, or you can tip a one-time donation of at least $1 throughout the week and be included in the drawing. So I'll get to who won the personalized reading at the end. And first we're going to dive into our weekly cards. I have cards and astrology from Monday through Friday, April 14th through the 20th. So we are diving into this week after a transformational week last week with the Libra full moon, Chiron Kazemi, and the Venus going direct and Mercury going direct. So you might have already started to feel a lot of forward movement in your life. I know I personally was very surprised at the energy that happened on Saturday with Chiron direct. I was kind of expecting that, being the wounded healer, to bring up a lot of uncomfortable feelings. And I said this in my Instagram stories this week, but I feel like depending on where you were at in your healing journey, it might have felt uncomfortable if there are some things that you hadn't examined. But if you've been doing the work, Saturday might have felt amazing, which is what I was lucky enough to experience. So we are basically moving into this week with kind of a clean slate and a fresh perspective on where we want to head, especially in regards to partnerships. So that could be romantic partnerships, or it could be business partnerships, it could be friendships, it could be in any way that you partner up with someone. It could be roommates. But we're basically going into this week with a different viewpoint. You might find yourself settling into a less anxious attachment style, or you might find yourself elevating your standards for the type of connections that you want to call into your life. And that is amazing. And we want to keep that momentum moving forward. So Monday, the day that I'm recording this is going to be a later forecast because I spent several hours longer than I thought trying to cut my own hair yesterday. So Monday, we are in the energy now, and it is very little astrology. There's, some movement. There's always something going on in the astrology, but I like to kind of marker the really bigger events and transitions that are happening. So no big in-your-face events happening on Monday in the cosmos, but our card for Monday is the Nine of Swords, which kind of surprised me after the high vibe energy of this weekend. But when you think about it, it really makes sense. This is kind of that energy of, I don't want to call it self-sabotage, but that is kind of what it is, where your brain kind of self-sabotages you when things start to go really well. And then you get caught up in the thoughts of like, when is the other shoe going to drop? Like, what could possibly go wrong to interfere with all this good stuff that's starting to happen, whether it be externally or internally. So just be mindful of that on Monday. If you start to get caught up in your thoughts, the Nine of Swords is an indicator that it really is just all in your head. It's just those like thoughts that keep you up at night, like on a constant loop, that really have nothing to do with what's actually happening in reality. So my advice for you on Monday is just to be radically present. And anytime you start to feel your thoughts spinning out of control, I'm spilling tea on myself. That feels like a metaphor for something. Anytime you start to feel your thoughts spiraling out of control, you can bring it back into, okay, what do I know now here in this moment? Because usually when we're worried about something, we're worried about something that hasn't happened yet and may not ever happen. So it's kind of a waste of your energy to be just giving it so much real estate in your mind. So this is just kind of a warning of like, don't let your brain kill your vibe. So that's what we're moving for in Monday. And I think that that's kind of just a simple message. I want to leave it at that. Tuesday, we have, again, quieter astrology, but the Eight of Cups reversed. So immediately when this card came out in the reverse position, I got the feeling that something that we thought was done and that we moved on from is coming back around. Now, we're still in Venus shadow period, so it could be that there's a past relationship that's kind of quietly coming back around, but I got the feeling that this is more of a positive thing. It's kind of that feeling, which I said a couple readings ago, of like, if you love something, let it go, and it comes back. If it doesn't come back to you, it was never yours. If it comes back to you, it was meant to be. And that's kind of what the Eight of Cups reversed is. It's you put yourself first in a certain situation in the past, and it could be romantic, because cups do tend to be romantic, but it could be in your creative sector or in your career if you work in a creative career, and you basically valued your own emotions and your own mental health enough to move on from a situation that either was toxic or just wasn't moving forward in the way that you expected it to. And you just kind of, hopefully, peacefully said, hey, this isn't working for me, whether you said it to another person or just to yourself. And you chose to move on. You chose to level up and move towards things that were more in alignment with who you are in that moment. And the Eight of Cups reversed is telling us that something shifted in that exterior energy. So there's something that maybe the other person, if you walked away from another person, they've had some time to grow and heal and reflect, and they're realizing that they're now a better match for you and they come back around. Or it could be that you walked away from a dream that you thought just wasn't going to happen. It was becoming too stressful to try and force it to happen. And suddenly an opportunity falls in your lap. And you didn't have to work as hard for it as you thought you were going to. It's not a struggle. That's the great thing about the Eight of Cups reversed, is it's something that usually comes as a bit of surprise. And it's just like, hey, you did the work and you didn't stick around in a situation that wasn't good for you. And now the universe has had time to kind of put the pieces together in a way that is more suiting you. And it's presenting it to you as this gift for all your efforts. So if we can get through Mondays in our headness into Tuesday, I think we're going to start to find some really cool rewards happening for how we've done our healing and how we've moved out of these Mercury and Venus retrogrades in a better aligned viewpoint. So I'm very excited to see what happens for us on Tuesday. But on Wednesday, we do have some astrology happening. So we have Mercury conjunct Neptune, and we have Mercury moving into Aries. So in the earlier morning hours, Mercury moves into Aries. So if you actually, I'm Central Time in the United States, I'm in Chicago. So anything west of Chicago might be experiencing Mercury into Aries in the wee evening hours of Tuesday, because it does happen at 1:25 a.m. in Central Standard Time. So just know that that energy is going to be into your Wednesday, but it might actually start during your Thursday evening. And we are then moving from Mercury going conjunct with Neptune. So what does that mean? Mercury into Aries is an indicator that we might start to find that, I don't want to say the communication gets easier, because it doesn't necessarily mean that the conversations are going to flow, but our following through on impulses to communicate things is going to be a little easier. So if you're the type of person that tends to bottle up your needs, your emotions, keep them to yourself, if you've got a lot of water energy and you tend to think that the outside world should just read your mind and you don't actually speak what you need, Mercury into Aries is going to help you to actually express your desires, express your needs, express your boundaries. So depending on the situation you find yourself in, as we move into Wednesday, you'll find it a little bit easier to speak your mind. If you tend to speak your mind quite easily, be mindful as Mercury moves into Aries, because it can get a little kind of hot under the collar. You say things that you're going to regret later. So just be mindful of the impulses if you do tend to kind of let things fly out of your mouth, because that might be even more prominent as we move into Wednesday. But for most of us, or for myself at least, and I think most of the people that are regular viewers of this channel, we're probably leaning more towards the keeping things to ourselves under normal circumstances, and we're learning to use this Mercury and Aries energy to speak up for ourselves, to ask for what we want. There's a beautiful quote that I always think of. My friend Gabrielle Rosie, she's the creator of the Bad Bitch Affirmation deck. She's great. You should check her out. but she has a quote that she talks about her mom saying all the time, which I'm sure her mom didn't come up with because it sounds like a pretty cliche saying, but it's the first time I'd heard it. And it's, if you don't ask, you don't get. And that's such a revolutionary thought process for those of us that are people pleasers or try to keep things to ourselves or expect the world to read our minds. Like, the world can't read your mind. So what do you want? How can you ask for what it is that you want? And that could show up in your relationships, asking a partner for certain things in the relationship. You could reach out and want to communicate with someone. You could end up being in a situation where you are having the opportunity to potentially further your career or have something really cool happen in your life purpose sector. And you have to ask for those things, like to ask for what you want. With that in mind, we have also that later in the evening, Mercury conjunct Neptune. So Mercury conjunct Neptune is giving us a little bit of a dreamy energy coming in with regards to our communications, because Neptune does tend to be kind of, it's involved in Pisces energy, and so it can be a little daydreamy. It's not a bad thing. I think that Wednesday evening is going to be a really good time into Thursday morning as well to do creative expressions. So especially if you write fiction, it's going to be a really good time to kind of get into that sort of like flowy, dreamy mindset so that you can think up plot lines and characters and do some really cool things that maybe your mind would have normally gotten in the way of under normal circumstances. So Mercury is kind of giving us that like lessened impulse control, and then also coming in with this Neptune connection where they're lining up with one another and allowing us to daydream a little bit and maybe again ask for what you want. Maybe that Neptune coming in conjunct with Mercury is going to help you get in this daydreamy state where you realize the things that you want to ask for and you start to communicate them with Mercury and Aries. With that in mind, our card is the Nine of Pentacles. And the Nine of Pentacles is kind of a card of getting what you want. It's a really great reminder with the Nine of Pentacles because obviously there are 10 cards in every suit. So the 10 of Pentacles would be, you have everything you could possibly ever dream of. But the Nine of Pentacles is kind of like saying, hey, you may be missing one single pentacle, but you've still got a pretty good thing going on here. So I think that as we move into learning to ask for what we want and communicate our needs, that's going to really let that final pentacle come into place. But it's also an energy of being really grateful for what you have and letting that kind of spur you into the energy of what you're trying to call into your life and what you want to ask for. So good things coming through the first half of the week. Again, Monday, little touch and go with our inner thoughts trying to sabotage us, but overall, a really good trajectory. When we get to Thursday, I used a completely new deck today, guys. So the fact that the Tower card came out for Thursday is endlessly entertaining to me in a way that probably stresses some people out. If you haven't been around here a long time, the Tower card is a rather stressful card for some, but I actually think it's super hilarious anytime I see it, because ultimately what the Tower card is it is a sign that the universe is saving you from yourself. There's an element of you've built some sort of foundation for yourself. You've started building a building that actually isn't working for you. It's not in alignment with where you want to go, who you want to be. And two things can happen with the Tower card. One, you can recognize and be self-aware enough that this is not for you. And you can choose yourself to tear down that building, to leave that relationship, to leave that job, to move, to do whatever it is that you need to extract yourself from the situation that you put some time into. So it is kind of disappointing that you have to tear it down, but recognizing that continuing to build is going to be unsafe for you and everyone involved. Because if you're building a building on a cracked foundation, it's going to come down sooner or later. So save yourself the effort of continuing to build there and go someplace where you can find a better foundation and build something that's going to actually last. So I love the Tower card because it is saving us from ourselves and actually saving us effort in the long run. But if you are not aware or not willing to leave a situation or to tear down a structure that wasn't working for you, the universe will do it for you. And that's when it gets a little uncomfortable. That's when it starts to feel like kind of like a Saturn. It's very similar to Saturn retrograde, actually, not Saturn retrograde. Your Saturn return. If you're not familiar with Saturn return, brief tangent here, approximately every 30 years in your life, Saturn comes back to the place that it was when you were born. And because Saturn is our teacher and, you know, sort of like checking in to make sure we're learning the proper life lessons for ourselves, if you're not on the right path, Saturn will course correct you, and it can feel really uncomfortable if you weren't aware that that wasn't the right path. So find some self-awareness on Thursday based on your current situation, current relationship, current job, current living situation, current just dream for yourself. It could be something that you're like trying to plan for that is actually not in alignment for you. And if you haven't, it's very similar to a midlife crisis energy too. If you haven't reevaluated your wants, your needs, your desires in quite some time, and you've just been driving towards a goal that you may have established 5 years ago, 10 years ago, it might be time to course correct. And yeah, you put a lot of effort in this course that you've been on. So it's going to feel like you took a building and took it to like the 18th floor and then had to tear the whole thing down and start over. And that can be disappointing. But again, ultimately, the building's going to come down one way or another. If it's not what you want and you keep building, it's going to come crashing down anyway. So you might as well be the one in control and in the power. In conjunct with that Tower card, we have Mars moving into Leo in the later evening hours on Thursday. So Central Time, it's 11:21. Again, adjust that to wherever you need it to be in the world. And it is, I mean, Mars is a combative energy, and Leo is a fire sign. But I feel like Leo's kind of a funner energy to have Mars in, because Leo's very theatrical. Leo's also pretty complimentary of both themselves and the exterior world. So whereas like Mars and Aries could get a little bit more combative, and especially with Mercury and Aries, it could be one of those situations where you are insulting someone that you didn't mean to, or saying something that is a little harsher than you wanted it to come off. I feel like Mars and Leo kind of softens that a bit, and that like maybe our Mercury and Aries impulse control is letting our mouth fly open, but Mars and Leo is kind of letting the mouth fly open in a way that is communicating something very passionately and usually complimentarily. Why is that a hard word to say? You know what I mean. So here's my thing. Mars is about passion. Leo's a very passionate sign. I think that this Mars into Leo in the evening hours on Thursday, after we've spent the day in the Tower card energy, is really going to help us to realign with our passions. So use that energy as a boost forward. So if you realize, or if the universe decides for you on Thursday that you're tearing something down and something that you worked on is not working for you anymore, by the evening / early morning on Friday, you're going to find that there could be more energy moving you forward towards something that you actually feel passionate about. It could be that you've been stuck in a situation, or like not even felt like you were stuck, but moving towards a situation for quite some time that actually wasn't something you felt that passionate about. It's just like a role that you kind of fell into and got stuck in and were good at, and you just kept moving and kept moving and kept moving and kept getting promoted and kept going forward, and it was paying the bills, so you didn't want to rock the boat. But ultimately the universe is like, hey, you know that whisper your soul's been trying to give you for decades to follow this other impulse that you really love? It's time to make that course correction. And Mars in Leo is going to help you find that passion again towards probably something that you put aside quite a while ago. Okay, moving into Friday with our Good Friday energy, we have the Ten of Cups reversed. So this card can be read a couple different ways reversed. It could be a negative connotation of the card. What I got when I pulled it from the deck, or when it fell from the deck, because most of the time I wait until a card falls out of the deck for these days, is that this is turning inward. So if you didn't catch a really good vibe Saturday with Chiron Kazemi and Venus going direct, Friday of this week is going to be a second opportunity for you to kind of get sort of a wave of goodness, of self-realization, of self-love, of recognizing your own healing, and feeling really content with the emotional structures that you've built for yourself. Because the cups are always about our emotions and our love and our creativity. And I feel like when we're moving into this energy of having sort of a week to process, Venus going direct, Mercury going direct, Chiron Cazimi, the Libra full moon, we're moving into this energy of filling up our own cup first. Maybe that's why my tea was spilling earlier. My cup overflowed. So I think Friday's just a good energy for, again, gratitude. We talked about that earlier in the week with the Nine of Pentacles, but really gratitude around the emotional healing that you've done. And I know for me, this is showing up a lot in regards to my attachment style, moving more into secure attachment, in a way that's just fascinating. I could go off on an entire tangent for that, but it's like my brain literally just got like reprogrammed overnight, and suddenly things that used to trigger me and my anxious attachment style, like it starts to go that direction. And I'm like, how would I feel about this if I was secure attachment? And like the second I have that thought, it like reprograms me down another path. So that could be what we're doing on Friday if you haven't had that sort of like self-realization and healing yet. But for the most part, it's like, look at what you've done. Look at what you've built for yourself. And especially in light of the Tower card the day before, you might be feeling like you're kind of uprooted a bit whenever you realize that this building needs to come down. And so the Ten of Cups is like, but look at what is working. Like, be grateful for the fact that you've created an emotional support system within yourself and without yourself, and that you have a drive towards a passion, because Cups is creativity. And so it's reversed because it may not be showing up in the outside world for you just yet, but you're having those realizations inwardly, and the micro always affects the macro. So it comes from within first, and then the outside world starts to echo back to you what you've already realized within you. Moving into Saturday. So Friday, very little in the astrology. That's why we focus on the card. Saturday, we have the sun moving into Taurus. So happy birthday to my Taurus signs that are watching. There's an unproportionate amount of Taurus signs that are currently watching this video. So happy birthday for the Taurus in my life. And then we also have Mars trine Neptune and Uranus sextile the North Node. So we've talked about this before. Trines and sextiles are a little softer energy. They're supportive energy, a little kiss of good luck. Trines are a little more kiss of good luck than sextiles, but they're softer. They don't feel like a conjunct or an opposition. So briefly going over those, Mars trine Neptune tells me that we could have a little, I mean, honestly, it could be supporting that idea that we kind of briefly touched on with Mars moving into Leo. When Mars is trine Neptune, we are getting that same Mars energy, that passionate drive, with the daydreamy energy of Neptune. So you could be coming very similarly on Wednesday when we had Mercury conjunct Neptune, when we were dreaming and communicating our dreams. Now we're coming to this place of like, oh, with the Tower card, we've uprooted something so that we can drive towards our passions. And we're going to take a little bit of time on Saturday to kind of daydream about where we could take that energy. Like, not necessarily daydream about what the passion is, because hopefully that kind of showed up for you as Mars moved into Leo, but where are we going to take it? Because it feels like there could be several different paths. This feels almost like, even though we don't have the card here, it feels almost like a Seven of Cups energy, and that like you've got options in front of you that all support this passion. But it's like, if you're a writer, like, are you a writer that writes books? Are you a writer that writes articles online? Do you write comedy? Do you write serious stuff? Do you do investigative journalism? Do you write medical copy for prescriptions? Do you write legalese? There are so many different ways to take stuff. Do you do more fiction writing, or do you do more nonfiction writing? There's different paths to take that passion. And I think that on Saturday, we're letting ourselves kind of daydream down all of those paths so that we can decide which one feels like the most resonant one for us. Uranus sextile the North Node indicates that there is a support in regards to change in our life path. So how crazy is it that the astrology and the cards work so well together this week? Because we're realizing with the Tower card that we're maybe changing a life path or a direction. And then just a couple days later, Uranus is there to help us with that change in our North Node, our true north, the direction that we're headed. So just be open on Saturday, because there's definitely some energy translating into that area. Also be mindful of where Taurus falls in your houses. So if you're new here, if you know your ascendant sign, you can figure out all of your other houses. If you don't know your ascendant sign, sorry, you can't truly figure out your house, but your ascendant sign is house 1. And then from there, you can just count around the zodiac wheel and figure out what number Taurus is. And that's the house that's going to be affecting as the sun moves into Taurus. So for me, I believe it's like home and family, I think is my Taurus. Yeah, that sounds right. So yeah, I might be finding that there's some things changing up around the way that I structure my home life. Maybe I actually am going to be writing from home as much as I want to be. So again, like being mindful of that might also help you kind of shift where this focus is going to go and pick a path from the choices that are in front of you. Also, our card for the day is the Ace of Pentacles. So this is a seed being planted, a fresh start, a new beginning, an inspiration for something that could pay off in your career and your abundance. So if the thing that is being torn down with the Tower card is a career path, on Saturday, there could be a seed planted for a new career path and a new direction that you're going to take things. So the universe is in support of it. Moving into Sunday, we do have quite a bit of astrology on Sunday. So Easter Sunday, for those that celebrate, I like to just think of it as like a fresh rebirth energy, but Venus is conjunct the North Node. That's the major astrology that's happening. So Venus is lining up, planet of creativity, love, and beauty, is lining up with the point of our life path direction. Now this is lining up with not our personal North Node, but the current North Node in the sky, but still it triggers our own North Node, our own direction towards our true north. So that's basically saying that, again, we have a support in moving towards what's right for us in regards to love and creativity. We also have Venus sextile Uranus. So again, Uranus is change. Venus is love, beauty, creativity. That means that Uranus is kind of coming in and giving a kiss of good luck for changing the way that we do our creative life and our love life. Mercury is sextile Pluto. So Mercury, the planet of communication, is giving a little kiss of luck to Pluto, the planet of absolute transformation. So this is about communicating something that not only changes your life, but could change the world. And I would say don't get too caught up in that second half of the statement, because I think whatever it is that you feel called to communicate on Sunday will ripple out into the world in some way. It's not so much that you have to sit down and be like, oh my gosh, how am I going to change the world today? It's you're going to say something that changes you, that also could help influence others and change the world. And you don't have to know how something like that's going to ripple out into the world. It could be that you say one tiny thing to one person and they say it to someone else and they say it to someone else and they say, like, you don't have to figure out how the message is going to get out to the world. You just have to speak your truth. We also have the Sun square Mars. So squares can be a little uncomfortable. Sun is kind of about ourself and Mars is about our passion. So there might be a little bit of conflict between how we see ourselves or how we saw ourselves going into all of these things that we had planned for ourselves pre-Tower card and where our passions are taking us. So just hold space for that. Like, recognize that you are allowed to transform in your own point of view of yourself as you move towards a different set of passions. The card on Sunday, we actually have a dual card, and we have the Seven of Pentacles reversed and the Two of Pentacles reversed. So again, we're very heavy on the Pentacles, especially towards the weekend, but then we have the Nine of Pentacles earlier in the week as well. So career, money, the way that you get your abundance in your life is going to be in evaluation and shifting around and creating more luck in your world. And the Seven of Pentacles is normally about waiting for the fruits of your labor to harvest. When it's reversed, it can be that it's time to harvest, that this is going to happen sooner than you think it's going to. The Two of Pentacles is usually about creating balance, like work-life balance, home-family balance, or home-friends balance, like whatever it is, like the opposing factors in your life, you're juggling them. But the Two of Pentacles reverse is telling me that there's something that we might have been juggling that we're like, I can put this down. I can actually focus more on this other thing because one of these items is not something that I want to juggle anymore. So I think that tarot card's really echoing through the rest of our experience throughout the weekend as we sort of realize that our path is shifting and our priorities are shifting, and we actually don't have to juggle as much as we thought we did because something is ready to be put down. And it's probably related to that Tower card realization. So those are our cards for the week. I hope that resonates for you in a way that feels comforting, because it is a lot of change, a lot of transformation, a lot of stuff going on in our head, a lot of reevaluating happening. But ultimately, it's moving us into a really powerful next chapter. So I hope that you feel that in your bones, and that helps to kind of drive you forward through anything that feels uncomfortable. And if you want more insight on your specific situation as you go through these transformations, know that I do always offer my one-on-one private readings, both with tarot cards, with Reiki healing, with astrology, and with past lives. So I have 4 different categories I do readings for. Put the links for those below. And if you want to be part of the drawing for the reading for next week to add an almost free reading for yourself, you can, again, either become a paid subscriber on Substack, or you can do a one-time donation at some of the links that I'll drop below as well. And anything more than $1 gets you in the pot. And then after that, it's just random generator. And for this week, let me pull out my proof of what came up when I did this little online wheel spin generator as to who is going to win. We only had 5 names this week, which I'm super grateful for all 5 of those names. But I also want to reiterate that by saying, if you just leave $1 tip, there's probably going to be 5 other people that you're competing with to win this next week. But our winner this week is Francis. And I'm super excited about this because I don't actually personally know Francis to my knowledge, and I'm super grateful that they are a blog subscriber and they actually subscribe on my actual website, but then they also get access on the Substack. And we're going to do a reading for Francis. So if you feel like the rest of this reading has resonated for you and you want more information, feel free to stick around for Francis's reading, because I have a feeling that if you feel called to stick around, something in this personal reading is going to be personal to you as well. You just have to use your intuition to sparse out what's for you and what's for someone else. But Francis, thank you so much for being a subscriber. And as my thank you for you this week, we're going to pull some cards. So my goal for these moving forward is I probably won't be working with personalized questions. So we're just going to feel into the energy, and I'm going to ask what it is that we need to know most here for Francis's situation and where they are moving forward. So let's pull a past, present, future to get us started. We got one that wants to come out, and let's see. I like to wait for people to jump. Oh, we got 2 more that jumped. Okay, let me pick those up. Hang on. Hopefully no edits this week, so apologize for that little pause in action. Okay, Francis, or whoever else felt called to stay for this reading, as we move into this next week, the energy that's in your recent past is the Justice card. So the Justice card is telling me that there's some sort of rebalancing that already was happening in your life. So your Tower card may come as less of a surprise, because it feels like you've already been kind of reevaluating what's working for you and what's not working for you. So maybe you're the one that chooses the Tower card. Maybe you choose to tear something down to the foundation rather than letting the universe do it for you. This could also indicate some sort of legal actions happening in the recent past. I'm getting some like air coming up in my system, which actually is usually an energetic sign that there's some cleansing that's been occurring, that you've been letting something go. And it is kind of coming from my heart chakra. So this could be a sign of leaving behind a marriage. If that doesn't resonate for you, this could be a sign that there was just something that occurred where you kind of weighed the checks and balances and decided it was time to extract yourself from a situation. And you may have had to seek out outside expertise to help you with that. So if we use the leaving a marriage as a metaphor, like you might have had to get lawyers involved, you might have had to get other people involved in the process of getting out of a situation that was no longer working for you. And so again, if a marriage is not the thing that's resonating for you, there could have been a recent thing in your past that you either had to get legal help involved or some sort of expertise involved, where you're like, hey, I need out of this, help me renegotiate this contract. That's basically the best metaphor that I can come for this. Like someone came in to help you renegotiate a contract of some sort, whether it be within a relationship, within a business partnership, or something else. But that's the recent past. So big changes already. And I think that, like I said, that feels like you were probably more prepared for the Tower card. In the present, we have the Hermit coming in. So this tells me that this energy of the Justice card was kind of exhausting, which makes sense given the type of situations that would come forward with that. And the Hermit is just telling you that it's totally okay if for right now you need to go within. If you need to kind of disconnect from the outside world a little bit, especially disconnecting from social media, this is giving me a little element of like, maybe there's something about what you're seeing online that is not contributing positively to your mental health, which I mean, I think is all of us these days, but I think even on a personal level. So again, I keep coming back to divorce as sort of a possible metaphor, maybe an actual situation that's happening for you. But I feel like this is telling me that like, if we use that as the metaphor, it's like you got a divorce and then like seeing your ex on social media was not great for your mental health, even if you were the one that chose the divorce. So like give yourself the permission to step away from anything, especially online, but anything in the outside world, period, that's not supporting your growth and healing at this time. And the Hermit card doesn't necessarily have to be for an extended period of time. Sometimes it is. Sometimes we have to hermit for like months on time to restore energy, to come back into our own inner balance and our own inner voice. But like, I'm kidding, this could just be like a weekend detox of like not checking social media, or even going to a retreat where you like can't check anything online. But it's just about like self-care. It's about recognizing when the outside world is not supporting your best inner self, and just letting yourself have the permission to pull away in a non-dramatic fashion. Just kind of like pull back, give yourself some time to rest, and then come back when you feel restored. In the future, I think it's going to serve you well that you took this little break of rest, because we have the Two of Wands. So the Two of Wands indicates to me that you have two very passionate choices to choose between. And the great thing about the Two of Wands, as opposed to like the Two of Swords can be like you have two situations that are kind of making you feel blocked. You're kind of caught between a rock and a hard place. Two of Wands is an indicator that you have two equally good choices, but one of them probably feels more ready to follow through on. So this could be, if this is a relationship-based reading, it could be that there are two potential partnerships that come into play, and they're both really good contenders, but one of them just is more emotionally available, more ready, more in alignment with what you need at this moment. And if it's like between like two jobs or two passions that you want to follow, again, there's no bad here, but there is one that's going to pay off sooner. And the thing I always like to reiterate with the Two of Wands is that just because you put down one passion to follow the other one doesn't mean that the other passion can't come back around. So I know we never like to go into a new relationship thinking that it's going to end. And I'm not saying if this is between two people that you're choosing a relationship, I'm not saying the one you choose is going to end, but it's kind of that feeling of like recognizing that just because you choose between two partners doesn't mean that there's not that scenario in the world where like one of those partnerships is really beautiful and exactly what you needed for several months or years, and then you part ways because it's no longer in alignment with where you're headed, and that other partner that you left behind months or years ago is suddenly ready for a relationship and comes back around. Again, I'm not saying that's going to be what's happening. If you are choosing a partnership, don't go into it thinking it's going to end, but pick what's best for you right now. Who is giving you what you need right now, whether it be a person or a situation or a passion project? Who is driving you forward in a way that feels easy and passionate, as opposed to something that you feel like you're like forcing to happen? This should feel really easy when your passion is driving you towards the Two of Wands you're supposed to pick. That doesn't mean that everything's going to fall in your lap, but internally it should feel really easy. You shouldn't be trying to manipulate anyone. You shouldn't be trying to force any situations. You're just going towards your passion and like letting the energy flow and trusting that if anything that you left behind is meant for you, it will come back around. Okay, underneath the deck, we have the Page of Swords. So underneath all of this, there's an energy of you connecting to your truth. And it's going to feel a little unfamiliar because the page is kind of just starting that process of connecting or reconnecting to their truth. But it's going to be what drives you towards all of these actions. So again, the Hermit card, you're going to find your truth in regards to how you're feeling about the outside world. If you're not feeling great about your connections outside of you, you're going to go within. And then with you choosing between your two passions, you're going to go with your truth. You're not going to listen to what the outside world has to say about it. You're going to go with what drives you forward in an internal way. So Francis, I hope that reading served you. If anyone else stayed to watch, I hope that you got to take away something from this reading as well. Again, these readings happen every month. You can become a free subscriber on the Substack to get access to these because they are free because of the people that are supporting these readings. But if you would like to get into the drawing next week, you can either become a paid Substack subscriber, in which case you are always entered into all of the readings, or you can do a one-time donation this week to get into next week's reading. And at least $1 if you want to do more, always appreciated. Thank you for everyone that supports these readings and my projects and my creativity. I'm so thankful. And I can't wait to see what happens for us as this week unfolds and in the coming weeks as well. Have a good day. Have a good week. I'll see you next